Hi, I'm Tanya. Welcome to this week's video on shame part 2. And this time I want to talk to you about the 14 inner critic attacks that Pete Walker talks about and walk you through each one and then provide you with a wonderful resource that he has that allows you to do thought replacement to shift those inner critic attacks that can bring you down, weigh you down, and prevent you from being in your power. So let's get started. First of all, let's talk a little bit about where this inner critic comes from. This inner critic comes from shame-based families. So things like abuse, neglect, scapegoating, all those different dynamics that come up in a family create that shame. And so if you had parents that maybe, neglected you, there was a lot of control going on, what happens is there isn't a healthy attachment formed and you don't feel safe. And with that lack of safety and those micro-traumatic events that build up, what happens is there's an accumulation of shame. And then instead of it being healthy shame, where it's used as a way to be ethical and to judge your actions, it brings you down and it dominates your mind, body, and spirit. So one way that it shows up, well, as a child, maybe you tried to be perfect, and when that didn't work, well, what shows up next is having that hypervigilance. And that hypervigilance is very similar to flight mode and just kind of like go, 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 because you're trying to be perfect so that you don't have that criticism, so you don't have to deal with more shame. And so it's really important, and Pete Walker talks about this in his book of surviving to thriving, about how you need to grieve that childhood loss, those losses that happen in childhood because of your needs not being met. So let's now review the 14 different inner attacks. The first one, very popular with everyone, is some sort of sense of perfectionism. And how that developed is that, well, you can't get support, so you'll do anything to get the support that you need, to get that approval. And so in a way, it's a mechanism to help you feel safe and loved because you're not getting that need met. And it's preventing you from being able to make mistakes because you always want to be perfect, and then you don't make mistakes, so you can't learn and you can't grow. So what does that look like as an adult in your everyday life? Well, how I see it in the work that I do is that often people will focus a lot on their appearance. Maybe they'll focus a lot on their physical appearance as well. Their home might look absolutely perfect. And I've mentioned this before, and then you open the cupboards and it's a mess. Or even, and I've even seen it where there's a perfectionism with knowledge. Being so precise and needing to know everything and needing to prove to other people that you know information about a particular subject. It shows up in different ways, perfectionism. The other way that it shows up is how to do things, and that's also a control mechanism. Because if you can control an environment and in a situation, then you feel safer. And so sometimes that's what a lot of control is about. It's about this attempt to feel safe because then it's predictable. And when you live in a dysfunctional family, things are not predictable. You never know when the stuff is going to hit the fan. So that one is perfectionism. The second one is black and white thinking. And with black and white thinking, it's kind of extreme. So it's either all or nothing. And it's connected to an event where you had a bad experience and then you assume that it's always going to be like that in a similar situation. And so then you actually change your behavior to avoid. That's one way that it shows up. And so it's a lot of judgment and criticism of yourself and others. It's a lot of blanket statements and generalizing. And the key to keep in mind here is that what kind of developed this, created this black and white thinking, one thing is being told always or never. you're always this or you're never this. So if someone's saying that to you, whether in the past or now, very, very likely it's not true, because it's not possible that you are always behaving in a certain way. We're always changing, we're always different. We might have tendencies, but it's never all or nothing. And so the way that black and white thinking shows up is, the way I noticed it in the work that I do, is extreme ways of living. So basically extreme diets, maybe focusing on one spiritual technique or one tool. Like, let's say, oh, meditation is going to solve all my problems. Well, no, you need to take a holistic approach. So this extreme black and white thinking also creates extreme ways of being, which are unhealthy in another way. Even if a person's developing a healthy mechanism, if you're just doing that, sometimes people become dogmatic about it, and then they start pushing it on others and thinking that it's all or nothing and this is the best thing and it's the only thing that you have to do. And so that just creates another problem. And so picking one thing to fix everything is not the solution, and seeing that there's a gray area with things is very helpful, and slowly shifting that extreme thinking. The third one is self-hate, self-disgust, and toxic shame. And this is where you literally don't love yourself. You are constantly berating yourself, you're not good enough. There's this sense that you've taken on the shame that other people have. So for example, if someone's feeling a lot of shame, a parent, maybe a father, felt a lot of shame, and that is fear, sadness, shame, and dumped it all on you. And then you take it on as if it's yours, and it's not. And so that's where that toxic shame comes from, because you're taking on something that's not yours. And emotions like fear, anger, and sadness are usually the ones that are dumped on. And so what that looks like, well, in the work that I do, I've seen it where people don't take care of themselves. So it's that other extreme of, okay, we got perfectionism, or we have the other extreme where you feel so bad about yourself that you just don't care about how you look and how you present yourself, or even your home. So there's just this like no energy or effort put into it. And it also looks like giving up easily and not like being motivated short term, but then it just dissipates because it's like, oh, well, I can't do, what's the point? So that ability to fully accomplish something, fully complete something is not happening. And that also happens with perfectionism, because if you finish a project, well, then someone has the opportunity to criticize it. But if you don't finish it, nobody can say anything. So it shows up in different ways, and there's different parallels. And with the fifth one, micromanaging, worrying, obsessing, over-futurizing. It's similar, however, it's taking you into a place of extreme anxiety, because you basically are examining, it's kind of like perfectionism, where you're very detailed, but you're examining every detail to kind of make sure you're safe. It's a different way of being detail oriented. And it's this assumption that, oh no, things are going to be bad. It's this assumption that, you know, if you make a mistake, someone's going to beat you up about it and judge you and criticize you. It's trying to control the uncontrollable. It's micromanaging other people to feel safe, to have that sense of control. And again, never feeling good enough. And so when I see this with clients, it's where if you're the one that's doing the micromanaging, other people aren't going to bother. And so what this ends up creating is this kind of like this dynamic where one person's doing everything. So it could be that perfectionist micromanager, and the other person who has that strong inner critic who's just like, I'm not going to bother. And then it's feeding off each other. And so that person who doesn't feel good and doesn't have the energy to do anything, they're going to be like, well, why bother doing it? Because they're just going to tell me I did it wrong. And then that person's going to be like, well, I need to do it because the other person's not going to do it the way I want to have it done. Either way, there isn't balance and there isn't proper flow and responsibility between both people. One person's maybe doing more than the other. And so the next one, number 5, is devaluing comparisons to others or the most perfect moments. So this one is a bit different. This one, oh boy, good old social media. We have this image that everything is perfect and that our lives are not as good, and everyone obviously is presenting themselves in the best way. When I do a video, I'm gonna present myself in the best way. I'm not gonna show up all disheveled, and because I wanna present myself in a way that is professional. However, when we use that as a blanket statement and assume that a person's life is always perfect and this is how they always are, well, it puts us in a position of beating ourselves up that we're not good enough and that, we can never measure up to others. And that's not fair because no one is perfect and we all have our flaws and we all have our challenges. And so there's this general assumption when we see others that, oh yeah, no, they're in a better situation than me. They have it easy. And that just, to compare is to despair. Remember hearing that one from someone. And there's also this idea that you need to be happy all the time, and that's not true. I'm not happy all the time. I have my moments, I struggle, and it's just learning how to accept the moment and either accept it or find a way to change the situation. And so, as I mentioned, social media is a killer for this, and it really puts people in a position where they can hide their shame and the truth about their life. And by no means am I supporting that you divulge all your personal information online. I choose not to. I choose to keep my private life private. However, it's a nice mask, social media, to pretend that everything's okay and hide behind your shame. So ask yourself, is it worth comparing? And maybe start being curious about other people and think, well, maybe they're struggling with this and their life isn't as perfect as it seems. And maybe I just need to focus on accepting things that are not going very well right now and also put attention to what I'm grateful for. That way you have that balance. So the next one, number 6, is guilt. There's a bit of a difference between guilt and shame. This one though is that you feel it regularly. When it's that inner critic guilt, you feel it regularly. It's unfair blame that's been put on you, so you always feel guilty. And remember that guilt is a camouflage for fear. And so if someone's guilt tripping you, it's that fear control dynamic. And it's also seen when a person is trying to take too much responsibility for something because they feel guilty. They don't feel good enough. You're over apologizing for something because of that shame, that inner critic, that low self-esteem, not feeling good enough. And it's this sense of worry and that you need to do extra because you owe someone. I notice that a lot with clients, and I've experienced that myself. I owe someone, I have that shame, and then I have to do extra because I feel guilty. And another way that this shows up is that you end up putting so much energy into others that you don't take care of yourself, and things just kind of fall apart, and it's this vicious cycle, and then feeling bad about yourself because you're not doing what you need to do for yourself. So next one, number 7, there's 14, we got a lot to go through today, is the good old shoulding. I don't do shoulds. It took me many years to really eliminate it significantly. It has a place. However, that shoulding is shaming. And I should be doing this. I should be doing this. And really, it's unreasonable demands that you're putting on yourself. Most likely, 80% of the things are things that you don't want to do and don't need to do and not your responsibility. And it's a good thing for you to start asking, well, do I actually want to do this, right? Am I spending time pleasing others because I feel guilty? I don't feel good enough, so I feel like I owe them? Do you feel unhappy because your needs are not being met? And you're shitting yourself so much that you're doing things for others or that you don't want to do because you think you have to, that really you're miserable. So start noticing when you use should and what's behind that should. What is it really about? And is it something that you really want to do? And is it something that's actually your responsibility to do? Number 8. So overproductivity, busyholism, workaholism. Oh boy, this is definitely flight. I see this a lot. And this kind of doing mode is a way to avoid feeling. So it's not just about the shame, it's avoiding feeling. It's this like perpetual productivity and this just general sense that you can't relax. And that's very likely that you're in sympathetic, that you're in flight mode, you don't feel safe, so there's this go, 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 I can't get caught. If you're in flight mode, nobody can catch you and criticize you. So when people are in flight mode, there's different pieces to it, and one of them is shame and not wanting to be caught and not wanting to feel the pain of things that have happened to you. But if you don't feel, you don't heal. When you feel, you release it. If you avoid it, you shove it down and it just keeps on getting bigger and bigger. And so what this looks like is that it will definitely affect your health because your cortisol levels are going to be high, your stress levels are high, and it creates different illnesses. You aren't able to connect with others because you can't sit still, and you can't have those moments of intimacy because it's just too much. And you're moving so fast that it's just, you can't actually be present and enjoy life. And so this is an important one to look at and to get support, because to slow down right away is overwhelming. In my course, Anxiety and the Clutter It Creates, which is part of my memberships, I talk about this, and doing sitting meditations is actually not a good thing if you're always in flight mode. Because what happens is that you feel danger and you have this energy. So it's better to actually do movement exercises to help release that energy, release that shame, and get back into ventral vagal. Next one, number 9, harsh judgments of self and others, name calling. So this goes both ways. It means that you agree with the bully and what they're saying about you. It means that you attack yourself, but you're also attacking others and critical of others. And that's a protection mechanism, because if I put attention towards others, well, they're not going to be paying attention to me because I'm keeping too busy and I'm throwing it out there. You take on that blame, and I mentioned this earlier, and criticism of others. And so here, it's the same as attacking self. As I mentioned in my last video, shame. And it's also that you're judging others because it helps you stay safe. So with this one, it's really important to slowly build up your self-esteem and your self-worth in a humble way, because you don't want to go in the opposite direction. That happens too, where people have these overinflated egos to compensate for that low self-esteem. And so that's something to be mindful of, and doing different exercises to connect with yourself, connect with others, and find ways to see your inner power and to see your self-worth. Number 10, drasticizing. Let's see if I can say this one, catastrophizing, and hypochondriasizing. Yep, that kind of afraid of everything. You constantly think you're in danger. You constantly think you're in trouble, or that you're going to get in trouble, because this is what happened. You were always in trouble when you were younger. And it's just this idea that life is going to fall apart. Everything's falling apart. Everything's horrible. And you cannot see the good. And it's this extreme sense of fear and these extreme thoughts of fear, which is really debilitating, and most likely will look like dorsal, where you're frozen in fear and you can't do anything and nothing gets done, and you attack yourself even more because you didn't get anything done, because you were frozen in dorsal, because you're freaking out because the world's coming to an end. This is not a fun place to be in. And it's very important to acknowledge and realize that if you're in dorsal, you cannot jump back into ventral vagal. It's a very slow process. So finding micro things, like even moving your fingers and your toes, is a micro step. You want to get movement going, but you have to do it in such a micro way. And working with a trauma coach or a trauma therapist and building these skills is one way to slowly get you out of this fear and panic that keeps you frozen, and then looking at, well, what is that fear really about? And releasing the shame so that you don't think you're always in trouble and that the world's coming to an end. So number 11 is similar. It's negative focus. And this is kind of, you're always thinking that there's something wrong. Nothing is ever good. You look at a situation and you automatically find the wrong with it. You discount your own attributes. You basically lose sight of the gifts of life, and you can't see the positive. You can't see the light of things. And so it really makes you stuck, unable to move forward. There's this sense that it's really difficult to change and that it's impossible. And again, this is probably most likely a state of being in dorsal. And it really creates isolation. And I find that people who tend to be in dorsal tend to get isolated a lot more because they're frozen, and then that shame just takes over and they can't go anywhere. And so for the next one, time urgency, it's almost the flip side, where there's a sense of danger, but now you're in flight and you're always go, 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 and you're always in a hurry, and oh no, this needs to be taken care of now, this is urgent, when really it's not. And then you're ping-ponging from here to here to here to here, and likely things are not getting done, and you're disconnected from your breath, from your body, from the present moment. And likely you're just dumping things and running, and your place is a disaster for that reason. And it's just, everything is kind of half finished because then another fire needs to be put out. So you're never able to fully stay present and follow through with something. Number 13, disabling performance anxiety. So this is where that fear becomes so intense that you procrastinate. You have unfair criticism about yourself, so you don't want to do something, and the fear takes over and you just don't do it. And I've seen this pretty much with all of my clients, where they procrastinate because of the fear of criticism. And the task just seems so big and overwhelming, they don't know how to approach it. And it really prevents them from doing things, and the smallest task seems monumental. And it could be something literally that takes 30 seconds and it's on their to-do list for a year. And so this is very debilitating, and getting support and doing these tasks bit by bit helps you rewire your brain to go, oh wait, I can do it. I don't need to be afraid. Nothing bad happened. So the more you avoid it, the bigger the anxiety gets, that bigger that fear gets, and the harder it is to do things. So this is one where it's super important to get that support and to slowly do things one at a time and overcome all those belief systems and rewire your brain so that you are no longer making that association that something bad is going to happen. Which brings me to number 14, which is expecting an attack from others. So you are in situations where you automatically assume that someone's going to criticize you, that the bullies of your past are in the present and they aren't anymore. They might be at work, they might be in your life, but you are an adult now, and there are things that you can do to shift it. And so this fear of being attacked creates a strong lack of trust of others. So then you kind of misread people's cues, you see micro movements, and you assume that you're in danger and you get triggered. And so it puts you in a situation of misreading people's intentions and really prevents you from developing really close connections and relationships with others. And so again, the exposure and relational therapy, where maybe you have a partner or a friend and you can slowly build that trust because you're not being attacked by that person, you're in a healthier relationship, is really key to overcoming this one. So I hope that you enjoyed hearing these 14 inner critic attacks. I know it's a topic that's pretty intense. However, I have to say that once I started reading the PDF that I'm providing in the comments section and just reading the thought replacement or affirmations, however you want to put it, it really shifted things. Just reading it and acknowledging that, oh wait, this is what's going on for me. A lot of the times if we name something, that alone releases and changes and shifts your state of being. And of course, getting support from a trauma coach is a great idea, or a therapist who can help you overcome these different things that have happened to you and created this inner critic that really pulls you down and prevents you from moving forward. So thank you for watching this video, and remember to like and subscribe, and stay tuned. Very soon I will be having my monthly memberships where you can take courses, and with the full membership you can participate in the bi-weekly live Q&A. Thank you, and until next time, take care.